Got him. Get out of there, fish. The water's dropping and these fish are pulling out of all this flooded cover out to the very outside edge. Woo! That makes up for that 6-pounder I lost earlier. Yes! Get out of there, fish. Oh, he's pinned. Get up here. Woo! Yes! Here we go. First fish of the day right there. Yeah! It's a solid 4-pounder. Just flipping some of this flooded buckbrush up here. Finally got one in the boat. Actually missed 4 fish before I caught this one this morning. And one of them was a 6-pounder. It came off halfway to the boat. Oh! I stuck that one though, throwing a 3/4 ounce black and blue jig with a rage craw on the back and catching these nice post spawn bass. It's actually the last day of June, but because of all this flooded water, these fish are still up shallow and the water's dropping, so they're pulling to the outside of these bushes and there's some big bass up here. So I'm gonna keep flipping, catch a few more. Yes, man, that fish was in the heart of that bush, just right up in the middle of it. And what I was doing was trying to pitch as deep into this brush as I can. The sun's out and these fish want to get in that really dark, dense cover. And I'm using a big, heavy 3/4 ounce jig, heavy cover flipping jig, so I can penetrate into that bush. And definitely worked out that time. I had the same thing happen with that 6-pounder and that one came off. So I'm glad I got this one in the boat. Man, yeah, I'm just flipping right here down this line of bushes and this water goes back probably 50 yards back into these trees behind me, and you can hear fish just busting and stuff in the background. And with water temperatures 85 degrees, you would think that these fish would be pulling off offshore, and normally this is a really good offshore lake, but because of all this flooded cover, the fish are staying up in these shallow water areas, and I'm picking them off with this big jig. So what I'm trying to do right now, guys, is target these outside bushes. The water's dropping and these fish are pulling out of all this flooded cover out to the very outside edge of these trees. And these trees are in a little bit deeper water and they're a great place for these fish to stage as the water's falling before they move out to their deep summertime spots. And when I'm flipping these bushes, I want to pitch right to the heart of that bush. Then I want to feed the bait some line so it free falls into that bush. Seems to get a lot more bites when it's free falling than when it's kind of dragging over that limb and falling through that brush. Got him. Another good one. Stay on fish. Oh man. Oh wow. Woo! That makes up for that 6-pounder I lost earlier. Yes! Yeah, I'm flipping that 3/4 ounce black and blue jig up in these bushes, and this is the exact same stretch where I lost that good one earlier. And that is a tank. Look at that fish. I'm shocked they're still up here though. It's really late into June. Normally these fish pull offshore, but look how fat that fish is. I mean, that is just a healthy bass. That's awesome. Let me weigh him real quick. Well guys, I'm seeing 593. I don't know what you're seeing, but it's a close to a 6-pounder, about the same size as that one I lost this morning. Definitely makes up for it. And you know, when you're fishing that big jig, you're bound to lose a few fish. That weight is really heavy and gives those fish a lot of leverage. But you know, when you lose a fish, you just have to put your head down and grind it out. And if you do, you're bound to get another good one. So I'll put this guy back and get back to it. Awesome fish. Look at that thing. That is fat, beautiful. Let's put her back. There she goes, she's gone. Awesome. Again, just got him on that big flipping stick. I love flipping that big jig up in the bushes. Bushes are really shallow here, but I'm still throwing a 3/4 ounce jig. I like to do that because I feel like I get a good reaction bite from those fish, and I get 95% of my bites in that initial fall when that bait first hits the bottom. And man, this is so fun. Oh yes, dude, that's awesome. I love catching fish on this big flipping stick. But here's the spot I'm fishing right here. It's just a point with some bushes on it, and there's actually a creek channel that swings in against this bank, making these bushes just a little bit deeper. But the water actually goes about 50 or 60 feet back into these bushes, but that fish was positioned right on this corner bush here, and I think that these fish were feeding up back in those bushes when the water was high, and as it's dropping, they're just pulling out to these outside bushes and kind of feeding up on the shad and stuff that's in here right before they move out to their offshore summer spots. But man, that's so fun. Golly. Oh man, but it's been a tough day today, guys. I've only got 7 bites and about 5 hours of fishing, and I've only put 2 in the boat. I'm having a little bit of trouble getting these fish out of these bushes, but I'm getting a lot better quality bites today, even though I'm not catching a lot. And I think that's because I'm throwing this 3/4 ounce flipping jig with that Strike King Rage Craw on the back. This jig has a really big profile and it falls really fast. And normally when I throw this, I don't get very many bites, but the quality is really, really good. You know, you could probably get more bites if you were flipping, you know, like a beaver bait with a 1/4 ounce weight, but the quality just wouldn't be there. So when you go out and fish these flooded bushes in the early summer, try picking up one of these really heavy jigs. You might not get as many bites, but stick with it. The quality will definitely be there. And one thing I want to mention real quick, guys, is that I'm not catching fish on every bank I'm fishing. And these flooded bushes are pretty much everywhere around this lake, but I'm catching my fish in small 20 and 30 yard stretches. And sometimes it's kind of tough to find those key areas. One thing I've been doing today is actually looking for blue herrings up in the trees above these banks. And every spot that has a blue herring by it has produced a fish, and all the stretches without the blue herrings haven't had any fish on them. So that's just one quick trick that you can use to kind of narrow down some spots on your home lake, so try it next time you're fishing. The other thing you want to do every once in a while when you're flipping a big jig in bushes is retie. It seems crazy when you're throwing 65-pound braid. You'd have to retie over the course of a day, but I've had multiple times where I've broken off a big fish because I haven't retied my braid in 2 or 3 hours. Even with braided line, that line will get a little bit worn out and you can break off fish. So just always retie. I just use a quick Polymer knot. There you go. Snip your tag ends and you're ready to get back flipping. And for the equipment I'm using with this 3/4 ounce flipping jig, first I'm throwing a 7-foot, 11-inch heavy action flipping stick, and this is the Greg Hackney edition. And this is actually the exact same technique Hackney used to win Bass Fest last year on Lake Texoma when the lake was really high and all the bushes were flooded. And for the reel, I'm using a 7-to-1 gear ratio bait casting reel. I like that high gear ratio reel because when those fish pick up the bait and they start swimming to the side, you can pick up line really fast to set the hook. And finally, I'm using 65-pound braid line. I never have issues with fish getting spooked by braid in bushes. There's all the limbs and stuff, so you can use as heavy a line as you want and it's not a problem. And I like that braid because it really helps me pull those fish out of the brush like you saw I did on that first fish. Well guys, I'm done for the day, but I hope you enjoyed this video on how to catch big bass on big jigs and flooded brush. So if you enjoyed, hit like and subscribe down below and leave a comment if you have any questions about what I was doing as always, and we'll see you next time.